Hey, how's it going everybody? This week's modifiers are going to be momentum. That's the one where you need to run in order to trigger health regen. It's also worth noting that you don't have to run. You get your health back if you're standing still, but it comes back very slowly. The other modifier is going to be anomalies. That's the one where you need to shoot down the blue oracles to increase your timer. And I'll be showing the location of all the anomalies as we play. For your loadout, I definitely recommend scout rifles because of kind of the type of maps you'll be playing on. There's a lot of long-range fights against ogres and hive wizards. I also can recommend bringing the Wardcliff coil because that's really good at taking down the boomer knights quickly. It's good to have at least one hunter because your hunter will be able to go invisible to carry the orb. In this first area, you'll kill a hive wizard and begin a wall hack, at which point another hive wizard will spawn in who you'll kill him, and then two boomers will spawn in, and these guys are pretty dangerous. You can hang out at the door that you came from. That's a little safer in my opinion, but if you just have your rockets out, you can also kind of push those boomers down really fast. That's why I recommend, and then you'll be done with the wall hack. After you open the doors, there'll be two groups of thralls that come out. Just be careful not to get overwhelmed by them, and you'll be facing a large ogre in the back. Now you can kind of focus fire on him from kind of further away if you wanted, or you can try to take down the boomer knights quickly with rockets, at which point you'll be able to go into the room and pressure the ogre. When it comes to getting the Nightfall done every week, you really want to have a nice beginning to your Nightfalls, because if you do really well at the beginning of the strike, then you have extra time to make mistakes at the end. But if you do bad at the beginning, you can just restart the strike and not really lose as much of your time. So yeah, you want to do nice and smoothly here. You want to make sure your team's not going down. When people go down, you lose a lot of your fire, your output. You want to make sure that you're telling your teammates if you're putting a rift down, that kind of stuff. Good communication is helpful, and of course just focusing fire on the boomer knights or whoever it is that needs to die quickly, like maybe the thralls. Just a really quick tip here, you can see my teammates have opened up the doors and I'm getting headshots on the ogres from a range that the ogre can't shoot me back at. So that's a pretty easy strategy there. He tries to walk behind a tree, but it doesn't help him because I can keep shooting him in the hand. In this area, there's a cluster of acolytes that you can shoot down to get your heavy weapon ammo back, and also it helps you with your filling up your super basically. You have to be careful though, because if you don't kill them and you walk out the doors to the next area, they can kind of shoot you in the back, and that actually happens to my teammate if you're watching. And now we're at the first Shrieker. This is where having a hunter is kind of useful. What he can do is he can kill the hive wizard, unlocking the orb. Then he can turn invisible and carry that orb to its location where it needs to be dunked. After you dunk it, the Shrieker kind of blows up on you. And you don't even need to kill all the adds in this room. You can just sneak by them, but don't forget to hit all of the anomalies in the room. This is an interesting part of the strike because you'll actually return here again and you'll be able to unlock a door that reveals another anomaly right at the end. I'll be sure to point that out when we reach that point in the strike. So this is the first crystal room. You can see my teammates are kind of ahead of me shooting them down, and when they're all broken, a door will open up, and this will take you in the next area, and it's kind of a big time sink. You have to be really careful here. So there's going to be a lot of adds, and I recommend focusing down the ogre who's kind of in the he's kind of stuck on a platform. He doesn't move around very much. I would focus fire on that ogre because he allows you to move around once he's dead. You can kind of move around as a team and start taking down all of those boomer knights that show up in the first kind of like half of the room. There's going to be 3 anomalies in here, so don't forget to catch all of those. Actually, I take that back. There's going to be 4 anomalies. I'll be sure to point them all out like usual. As you get the first half of the map cleared, there's going to be another ogre in the back and 2 hive wizards that spawn in. This is where it's really useful to have a nice kind of like a ranged option to take those hive wizards down. It's also not a bad idea to consider using your supers here. I feel like this fight is pretty controlled. There isn't a lot of cover for the enemies to use, so this is kind of a safe area for you to be able to generate orbs as well as clear up the enemies quickly. How fast you get through this room, in my opinion, is really the final, I want to say it's like the final way to judge how well you're doing in the strike, because if you can punch through the room quickly, you're going to be able to finish the boss with plenty of time left. On the other hand, if you've reached this room and you don't have a lot of time left, this is probably where you want to consider restarting your game, and that's especially true if you're playing the Prestige mode. So you're doing the normal Nightfall, you usually have enough time, but if you're doing Prestige and you don't have a lot of time left at this point in the strike, you know, you're probably not going to defeat the boss. This is where you might consider resetting your game. This next area is especially one of the harder parts of the strike. So there's going to be a lot of boomer knights once again, and I feel like there isn't a lot of good angles you can take on them in order to take them down. So this is a good situation to use your heavy weapons, your power weapons, as well as your supers in order to take them down. Be sure that you're communicating with your team that you're going to do that to make sure that you're able to generate orbs for them rather than having them take whatever, like the last shot on the enemy, and make sure that you're just punching through this area as fast as you can. Again, this is going to be another orb area where you're going to clear some adds up and an orb's going to become available. Then you're going to have a hunter carry the orb to the dunk location, and this time the dunk location is going to be a lot more difficult. There's going to be a lot more enemies, including 2 red ogres, or red bar ogres, and then there's going to be 2 shriekers in a room, and you're really going to need to clear most of the ads in order to get through the room safely. If your hunter happens to go down while carrying the orb, it's okay for the orb to be on the ground for a little while, but if the orb sits on the ground for too long, it actually disappears. So you need to have somebody pick that orb up and hold it long enough to get the hunter back up and give him the orb back. So yeah, you just have to be careful with handing the orb off. This part of the strike is actually kind of interesting because the hive traps are finally dangerous. For most of the fight, they're just annoying, but here, if you actually get grabbed, there's a fair chance that you're in a kind of a prone situation where you can get shot up. So be sure to stay away from the traps, or if you get into a trap, be sure to shoot it down right away. Alright, well, this next room contains the 2 shriekers that you're trying to destroy by dunking the orb. You know, it's worth noting that once again, having a hunter go invisible is very useful here. If you don't have a hunter, you can have like your 2 people who aren't carrying the orb can run into the room first, and this will draw away the, you know, like the fire from the shriekers, allowing your orb carrier to get up close and personal with them. After the shriekers blow up, you'll have a little run through a hallway, and this will take you up to 2 hive wizards. They're pretty easy to take down because you have kind of like a nice open range against them, and they don't have any cover to hide behind right away, so you just take those down real fast. And then I want to point out, this is important, this is the room where a secret, it's not really a secret, but a door opens up and you can finally shoot down a shrieker who's kind of been hiding there since earlier on in the strike. Yeah, he was kind of behind a wall, and this wall is finally opened up, and after you've killed him, you're heading down to the last part of the pre-boss strike, where you're going to run through kind of like a dark hall full of exploding thralls. At this point, I'm just checking to make sure I didn't miss any of the anomalies in this room. Hey, if I did miss any of the anomalies throughout the strike, please leave a comment and I'll update the comment section to outline any of the anomalies that I might have missed, okay? So I'd appreciate that, thank you. Alright, well, let's start talking about how to defeat the boss easily. So Savathun, actually Savathun's song. Savathun is a giant wizard sister, right? And this is like her Shrieker. Well, the Shrieker, it's got a crit spot in the middle, and what it's going to do is as you damage it, it's going to start jumping around the map to various locations. It'll bring some bad guys in, and then you got to do some special stuff to her at the end of the fight. So the first time she jumps, she'll bring in some boomer knights. You can use your, you know, like your ult or your supers on these boomer knights to get rid of them quickly. That's what we did. And then she's going to jump back to the middle. You'll keep damaging her. She'll jump over to the left at some point, and she's going to spawn in a whole bunch of acolytes and ogres. So this part's a little trickier than I want to say some of the other boss fights ever have been in. When she brings in those ogres, your team really has to be ready to not just take out the ogres, but the acolytes as well, because they're pretty dangerous in my opinion. And you know, we got like a hunter running Orpheus rig that helped. And then once you bring her down to her last health bar, right? She's in her 3rd health bar. She starts to shoot out these like seeker orbs. And if you feel like you've been targeted, you should really start running, and start running as early as you can, because you are able to kind of evade them. They're pretty good at tracking you down. It's just kind of a fact that your team's going to be going down here. So one of the things we like to do is, once we can knock her into the 3rd phase, when she's in the 3rd phase, it's a good idea to get all your damage on her as fast as you can, so that she does the move where she teleports to the very, very back of the room, and at that point she'll be given a shield, and it'll be just like what you've been doing throughout the strike, where you need to pick up an orb and dunk it. Yeah, we like to knock her into that point of the fight, because if you allow her to just sit in the middle, right, shooting out these seeker orbs that actually track you, your team can wipe pretty quickly from that. It's actually really dangerous. This is especially true on prestige mode, okay? You can try to shoot the orbs down as well, as long as everyone's shooting them down. The totally legitimate strategy, but for us, what worked for us last time is we just like to damage her really bad with all of our supers and grenades when she's on her last bar of health, so that she would teleport to the back, or I don't know if it's a she, and she would get that shield, and then the dunk would occur. For the dunk, the way the dunk works, the orb becomes available after you kill an initial wizard, right? And when you pick up that orb, 2 wizards are going to spawn on the left and the right. It's up to the teammates who stay behind to shoot those down. Meanwhile, the person who picks the orb up, he's going to use the platforms to jump up to Savathun. He's going to dunk it, and then Savathun will then teleport back to the middle of the map, and at that point all you need to do is burn her or it down as fast as you can. So just get whatever DPS you have left, supers, grenades, power weapons, just burn her down, and that will be the end of the strike. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this guide, and I'll see you guys next week.
Down. Well, we did it. Wish we'd had time to think of another way, but we did it.